Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Fear the Walking Dead Season 2, Episode 5, Captive. This video is a part of a series of videos where I review episodes of Fear the Walking Dead, so I'll have to give a spoiler warning for Fear the Walking Dead up to Season 2, Episode 5. If you haven't seen up to this point, you may not want to watch this video, otherwise some things may be spoiled for you. So, this episode overall was alright. I didn't really have a problem with this episode by itself. I thought it was significantly entertaining, but overall I'm starting to have a lesser view of Fear the Walking Dead overall. And I'm starting to look at it more like most people do, that this show is a bit boring, and I do feel like I'm starting to lose interest in it overall. However, that's more of an implication of this episode and the last episodes, overall, rather than just this one episode by itself, which it wasn't bad. So we start with the episode with Alicia being held captive by Connor, who makes her steak, which the pregnant woman steals from her, obviously not liking her very much. This scene reminded me a bit too much of the Season 3 opening of Lost, which was also boring. People who know that show know what I'm talking about. So then Alicia explores her surroundings. She's on a very large boat that's docked at some shipyard somewhere. So I'm not really interested in this Connor guy, as he comes off as a douche. And I'm really also not interested in this pregnant woman and why she's so pissed at Alicia. I don't care. And then we get more of Alicia with Jack, who does obviously actually care about her, but is too afraid of Connor to defy him. And so they have her working on trying to deceive other boats out there, the same with what Jack did to her, which she doesn't seem really much interested in doing, and somehow she manages to avoid doing it at all in this episode, so good for her. But again, I didn't really care much for Jack either, as he was kind of a jackass, and I kind of just wanted him to go away too. So then we go back to the boat where Salazar is cleaning up Reed's wounds, and who he, apparently is still alive. And I like this scene so much better because it was so cool to see the way Salazar played him, because this Reed guy is obviously a douche, and he tries to intimidate them by saying, "Ooh, Connor's coming," and that, I'll rip you apart. But Salazar is obviously way more of a badass, as he's completely unfazed and has this awesome line about how people who truly inspire fear don't talk about how frightening they are. That was awesome. And Chris, who was also in the room, asks why he let him talk to him like that, and his response was, "Oh, he's just scared," which is exactly it. You can see it on his face when Salazar said that thing to him. He was so scared. He was scared out of his mind. And more than that, we find Salazar was letting him ramble like that in order to get information out of him, which he got in the way of finding out Reed is Connor's brother. So he goes to Madison with this information, and so she changes course to Connor's position, and Luis objects and thinks it's pointless, but Strand sticks up for her and backs her up. But when she thanks him, he just says, "Don't thank me, now we're even." So then we catch up with Travis, who's being held in a holding cell, and he encounters Alex, and she confesses that she was the one who told Connor's people how to find the Abigail, as she tries to make Travis feel bad for abandoning them by telling him the story about how Jake died horribly out at sea with no water, and she had to kill him. So she told Connor where to find them and asked them to bring Travis to her. So if this is why they brought Travis there, because she asked, I thought it was because he was a good mechanic. But, what do they expect to do with him? Anyway, I had some major problems with this storyline that really bothered me. I know that they tried to give the excuse that Alex holds a grudge against Travis because she saw on his face that he knew it was the right thing to do but didn't do it anyway. I call major bullshit on this, as her anger should be directed at Strand. Strand was the one who cut the rope, but this episode tries to erase that from history, as it even in the previously on, it randomly shows the rope being cut and doesn't even show it was Strand who did it. And the whole time I was just waiting for Travis to say, "Why are you mad at me? I'm not the one that cut the rope." And in fact, Travis was so furious at Strand for cutting the rope, he wanted to throw him overboard. But of course, Travis doesn't mention any of this because he's not one to dodge responsibility, and he does feel guilty about what he did. So that is in character, in keeping with Travis's character. But really, I think it's preposterous for Alex to hold all this anger towards Travis and not even mention Strand, who was the real villain here, because although Travis didn't let her on the boat, he offered her food and water and supplies and to tow them to a proper location, which was a lot more than what Strand offered. And if it wasn't for Strand, she wouldn't have had to suffer through what she did. So that storyline was stupid and it bothered me. Of course, the reason they did this this way is so she could have a heart-to-heart with Travis about how the post-apocalyptic horrors changes people. And I do get the impression she might have warmed up to him a bit, which never would have happened with Strand. But still, I find the storyline too implausible. I was hoping they'd bring her character back, but honestly, I think they kind of ruined her character in this episode, so I'm weary to see her again. But after all of those webisodes introducing her, I think it'd be lame that if she only appeared in 2 episodes, but we'll see. So we also get the storyline with Madison being overprotective of her kids as, she refused Salazar's suggestion that Nick and Chris could help recover the others, and she yelled at Strand for sending Nick on that mission and outright refused Nick when he offered to help to be the one to make the exchange. This makes total sense for a mother trying to protect her children, but at the same time I'm kind of tired of stories like this and I'm not looking forward to seeing more of it. Then we get a scene where Reed continues to try to antagonize Chris by trying to speak to his fear that the rest of the family doesn't really see him as part of a family and doesn't care about him, and the next thing we know, Chris shoots Reed in the face. Chris is upset and crying and said he was about to turn, but that seems like BS to me. He just wanted to shoot him up. Mainly because he didn't shoot him in the forehead, so in fact it didn't stop Reed from turning, so obviously he wasn't about to turn. However, I like how Madison comforts him afterwards. I think it shows that Reed was wrong and they do consider him as part of family. And as we've seen earlier, Madison was being protective of Chris as well. So I think she is really starting to think of him as one of her own. So as I mentioned, Reed does turn, but Salazar stops Nick from killing the zombie Reed and instead comes up with a plan. And right here I knew what it would be, because it was Madison's original plan to exchange Reed for Travis and Alicia, but when Chris killed him it kind of fucked up that plan. But Salazar's solution is to send zombie Reed and fake Connor out by pretending it's actually Reed. And this episode reminds me so much of that Deep Space Nine episode, The Magnificent Ferengi, where Quark was going to do a prisoner exchange with his mother, but the prisoner he was going to exchange her for accidentally got killed, so they put on stimulators on his body and tried to present him as if he was still alive so they could make the exchange anyway. And this was basically the horror version of that comedic scene. Although I do think it was badass the way it was pulled off, with Reed zombie killing Connor and ripping into his skin. That was awesome. Thank God Connor's dead. All these guys are douches. We also get a storyline of Alicia and Jack pledging to run off together before Alicia realized that it was her family that was on the way. I was almost afraid that Alicia was going to run off looking for her family, not realizing that they were right there, and I'm glad that didn't happen. That would have pissed me off. But I really loved the scene where Alicia went looking for Travis to free him, but he had already been taken to the prisoner exchange, and how the pregnant woman confronted her and was like, "Oh, you hurt Jack's feelings," and tried to lock her in the cage. Fuck Jack and fuck her. So I loved it when Alicia kicked her ass and locked her in the cage instead. That was awesome. So then Jack confronts her and is like, ooh, I thought we were going to go run away together. And again, I was so happy that Alicia was just like, nah, screw you, jumps off the boat, goes back into her mother's arms. So my rating for Captive out of 10 is a 7, very good. A fairly exciting episode. Some things I liked about it, some things I didn't. Some character developments I think would be great down the line, such as with Chris, and some developments I thought ruined the character, such as with Alex. Some great character moments, like with Salazar, and some characters I hated, like Connor and his group, who were a bunch of douches. But on the positive side, it did end with most of them dying or being locked away or rejected, so that's good, and I really hope to never see any of them again. So that's it for my review of Captive. Be sure to check out my channel every week as I continue to review episodes of Fear the Walking Dead. Also be sure to check out my channel as I review many other shows like Game of Thrones, Star Trek, Orphan Black, and more. And be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. Thanks a lot for watching.